Welcome everyone to the Anarchy Analysis Prediction Series. We are live once again with our predictions for the semi-final of Worlds 2023. We're almost there to the final, but we've got two best of 5 series to break down. But before we quickly get into them, we're going to go over last weekend's quarterfinal results. Obviously, we predicted in the last video all 4 series, which saw us drop only one, as the Gen G BLG series ended in the LG beating out the LCK first seed. But yeah, that's out the way. We've got 4 teams remaining and a couple of pick'ems to make. So without further ado, let's get into our opening prediction. So let's get into our opening prediction. It is BLG versus Weibo Gaming, the two LPL second and fourth seeds. Made it all this way. Only one LPL team didn't make it to the semi-finals, and that was LNG, and they got unlucky because they faced T1, who we'll get to talking about soon enough. But as it stands, it kind of shows how dominant the LPL has been during this season, especially considering how MSI went, obviously. But yeah, we get into BLG once again in a semi-final after unfortunately losing out in the finals of MSI. They came back here this split and have actually done exceptionally well for themselves. I think this team, it's weird because from watching the games, it looks like Yagao hasn't really had that big of an impact for the team, and he looks to have been bullied out. But this is looking at the G2 series as a whole. The fact that they heavily put pressure onto him, he still showed up in the minutes and moments that matter most to pop off in fights. And while he's been more of the scrappier mid laners, the more opting for the likes of Yone, the likes of Nico, these close up front and personal picks, he's still been very prevalent on control mages. And there's a reason I'm talking about this mid lane matchup, as Yagao and Xiaohu have kind of been the quiet, the more so underperforming players of their respective teams, and I want to highlight that matchup more so than anything, because someone's going to have to put on a good performance here. And we know already the Shy and Bin is probably everyone's most featured matchup, as, let's be honest, they are pretty damn good at being top laners and have been exceptional throughout this tournament. I think the bot lane, we're also going to see a very close battle, as Light and Crisp, I believe, are the Weibo bot lane. They're against Elk and Hang, or On, whichever one it is. Both bot lanes are performing very well, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I'm pretty proud of how well BLG have stepped up. I thought that it would have been a one and done thing of them making MSI, and then during the summer split they would have fallen apart, kind of because they did technically, in some respects, as LNG outperformed them. They made it all the way to the summer playoff finals, but obviously didn't get many points during spring, so they didn't finish in second place overall. BLG took that honor, and they're here again, looking to make it, ironically, another second split finish for them. A second place finish, maybe even higher, to be honest. But yeah, BLG are on a warpath right now that I'm pretty intrigued by, because you've got Weibo, who are on a similar sort of trend. Weibo are weird in some regards with how well they've been playing. Both teams get to late game team fighting very strong, and it comes down to the top laners making a massive difference. And it tends to both be on like Aatrox that I think's not really seen too much preference outside of the Chinese players in the top lane. I'm even going to check its stats, to be be honest here, because it seems like a weird pick overall that's found success. So, if, this is a huge if, it's allowed through in this series, the Shy and the Bin have played it quite a bit. The only player to have played it more, actually no, neither of them have played it more, but I'm looking at the list, only Zeus and Doran are outside the LPL in terms of people who have picked this champion, which is insanity for World, because it's got a literal 68% win rate. It's 11 wins, 5 losses. That's mad. And I think in this entire series, I think it'll become a very pick ban heavy pick or champion, because this pick has defined a lot of the late game team fights. The Shy has picked up many triple kills with this pick in the series Weibo have played. So I think we're gonna have to put our priors, our thoughts on this. I think we're also gonna have to think about mid lane, obviously, how both I think have underperformed. But I'm talking all this up. I haven't given you my prediction. That's what this whole video is about. I think it's a 3-2. I think it's going all the way. Weibo have overperformed everyone's expectations, and I'm giving that result to BLG. As a whole, BLG have had the better year, and statistically speaking, BLG have honestly done well at Worlds. The fact they beat the first seed of the LCK, and granted, it's Gen G who somehow have a massive curse in quarterfinals. Yeah, basically, I think BLG will do an absolute blinder of a series here and just probably go down 0-2 and then just spin it on its head. That's my thought process with this series, and that's how I think it will go. Before we get into our second series, this is a friendly reminder that we will be covering every single game live from the upcoming semi-finals. We will be starting our live streams on Sunday. Be sure to stick around if you would like to be notified about our live streams as well as new content and videos on this channel. Subscribe, it's free, it helps me and it'll help you learn more about what I'm doing. Anyway, getting into our second series for this weekend. It is JDG versus SKT1, or T1 now. I keep calling him SKT, it's a habit. But we're going into probably the World Championship deciding series. T1 have a vendetta against JDG because last time they met up was in the upper bracket semi-finals or upper bracket final of MSI, and T1 lost it. They lost to JDG in a fashion that was unfathomable, and now they're coming into this one with vengeance again in a semi-final. And you look at the other side of the bracket, BLG aren't an easy pushover. Weibo slightly more in terms of people's expectations, but if T1 wins this, they're definitely favorites to win the entire tournament. JDG have been favorites throughout the tournament. That's this matchup as a whole. And coming into pick and ban for this series, I think what we will see is something very, very interesting. If we look at a previous matchup between these two teams, I'm just going to load up that series on the monitor. Essentially, pick bans were very stock standard between both rosters. There was very little explosivity or expresses stuff out of T1, except for Faker being a play-making supportish player, with the likes of Nautilus, the Cassante, as well as a Tristana in that series. I think the big difference between then and now is T1 this year have kind of gone from Faker babying a load of rookies into this explosive sort of team. At Worlds, if we just look at, I'm just taking a look at Faker's champ pool for Worlds this year. He has literally played 9 games of Azir, with 4 games of Nico, 3 games of Jace, 2 games of Corki, and the rest are at 1 pick. There's a reason this team's working so much better than how people expect him. It's because Faker is no longer being the baby carrier of the team. He is being the full damage threat of years past, and it's showable in the results. He's got the highest damage percentage of his team and is not even receiving the most gold in the game for T1. He is generating advantages for himself and doing a lot of work without really being involved in much. He's been this more so play-making guy with the Azirs and the Nikos compared to what you could see on a Nautilus. He's kind of doing a similar thing, but he's also having more damage. And that is a huge factor for T1 because their drafts have been very, very hard to deal with. The fact that I'd say they're one of the only teams that are still playing enchanters, like, at this entire Worlds tournament. Pretty sure Lulu has only been played a handful of times. Spoiler alert, looking at the stats right now, it's only been played by 3 people, and that tallies up for 8 games. 6 of them games come from carrier. The fact that T1 is still happy to play enchanters in this meta is kind of surprising compared to everyone who ditched it in summer. T1 are a team that's very hard to predict and draft against at any given time because they whip out such unique combinations of champions. They're picking up the Senna and Tom Kench, the Senna Nyla that we saw Carmine Cup pilot to success at the EU Masters. We're at a stage where this team are very hard to draft against because they've always got an option regardless of how you draft. And that is something that teams cannot adapt to or are struggling to. And I think what's important to say here is teams can be very stale in draft. And I had a brief look at JDG before we got into this sort of breakdown. I looked at their drafts, and to be honest with you, JDG at Worlds this year haven't been too stale. They've got quite a diverse pool. However, they certainly have their favorable picks, and I'm starting to question Knight. We've never seen him play Azir in this tournament, and that's kind of a worrisome thing, because it's a big pick that if Orianna is not on the board, chances are you will lose the game, because you need to play Azir. The fact he's not going to it is a bit of a telltale sign that he isn't able to play it. Granted, I'm pretty sure he's played it this year and done semi-decent with it. I'm in fact going to check that right now. He's played it 13 times with a 55% win rate. 53% win rate, I should say. So it's not his most winning champion. I'd say of his top 20 or so, it's his second or third worst behind LeBlanc and Galio. Or ahead of them, I should say now. But it's not his best pick. And I think that's a big factor as to why he doesn't play it. His Nico is 85% win rate with 14 play. One more play. It's such a higher win rate that clearly he prefaces that. But how I think T1 will attack draft, if they're on blue side, you best believe they're just going to ban the Nico and then ban something else, like maybe even ban the Ori themselves, and they could honestly take away another mid laner for Faker, or let it go through pick ban, let Knight get his blind pick, because chances are he's probably gonna pick it before you, because Faker will probably end up taking or sacking bans. I think mid lane's going to be the interesting draft area for these two teams. So how we'll attack draft when we see it is, if Faker is left to last pick on red side, then chances are he will be counter picking whatever Knight chooses. I think T1 may attack it that way. I think they could quite easily exploit that champion pool, to be honest. Similar thing with Ruler. His champ pool's quite shallow as well. I'm just looking at the champion picks for JDG. The fact that they haven't had that many games compared to everyone else, they're doing pretty good in terms of what they've shown. Like, it's minimalistic compared to T1. I'm just looking at them both and it's like, how have you managed to do that? Yeah, essentially, I think the fact that JDG have found something that works is a huge benefit for them. But as a whole, I think it could be their downfall. Even though I've got them winning 3-2, yet again, 2-3-2 predictions, shock horror. I think JDG will edge it out against T1, even though T1 probably will have learned from their mistakes from when they met up last time at MSI. So yeah, that's my predictions. I know I've rambled on for literally 10 minutes talking about this series, but yeah, that's it. Essentially, it's a big, impactful series. It's the decider, I feel, for Worlds as a whole, so it's going to get ample time in the prediction. So with that all said and done, thank you very much for joining me today. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new. I will see you guys for the live stream and then for our finals predictions. By the way, just so you do believe me, boom, I've locked them in. This has been locked in for over a week. Well, since the end of the semi-finals. So yeah, there's that. So thank you very much for joining. If you enjoyed, leave a like below, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.